Go, the next man to do the famous 3. Here we are then. This is the route. Distance, as I said, 199.5 kilometers, running out from Charleroi eastwards, then towards the Mur de Huy for the first time. We actually go up it 3 times. You can see it is the third hill there on out of the 10. The finish, by the way, the Mur de Huy doesn't count as a côte. It is where they end. And it's much, much steeper than some of the hills you see in Liège or Amstel Gold. The Mur de Huy is as steep as 25% at some points, and it's nearly 10% average gradient. It's a nasty ramped ascent, and it really will sort out people. Joining me in the commentary box today, I'm very pleased to welcome Graham Jones. We haven't seen you for a long time, Graham. Welcome back.
I think it was this race last year, actually, the last time I did this. So, yeah, it's good to be back at this race.
Yeah, we'll have to get you in more often. Tell us a little bit about the character of this race before we get into the nuts and bolts of what's going on. What is this race actually like?
It's completely different from the other classics. The first classics of the year were in Belgium, the Tour of Flanders, Ghent-Wevelgem, Paris-Roubaix. There's a lot of pavé, a lot of narrow roads. This one just tends to suit the more sort of climbers, not necessarily the mountain goats, but the good all-rounders. And it's a race similar to Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and also a little bit to the Amstel Gold Race. It's just repetitive, short, not necessarily long climbs, but short, sharp climbs, one after the other.
Really wears you down. Slightly shorter than the other two, 199 kilometers, but that's they're still going to feel tired after Amstel Gold. Let's bring you bang up to date with what's been going on at the moment. They've got 80 kilometers to go, so they're well over the halfway point now. And in the breakaway group, which has been chopping and changing, people coming across and getting back. I mean, I've got about half them here. I think you probably got some as well. Marcus Vothen and Andrea Molletta from Gerolsteiner. There's Andrea Molletta in your shot there in the light blue of Gerolsteiner, nearest the camera. Vincenti Garcia Costa. That there is Alexander Kolobnev in the black, red and white of CSC with the Cervelo bike. Just coming to the front, very, very strong rider. Remember, he sneaked to win last year in Paris-Nice when Tom Bonan thought he'd won the stage, and Kolobnev was already up the road, and he won the very first edition of the Eroica over the Strada Bianchi in Italy last year. There are 3 CSC riders to watch out for in this front group: Nicky Sorensen, Alexander Kolobnev, and the most dangerous one, Andy Schleck, second last year in the Giro d'Italia. And a very big talent. A lot of people say even more talented than his brother Frank Schleck, who's slightly older. That is Paul Martens from Rabobank. The Dutch outfit in the blue and orange there. There are 2 of the dark red and black Silence Lotto riders. The one who's just gone out of your shot was Jurgen van den Broek, the Belgian. 20 riders in this breakaway group, and we'll run down them immediately now. Marcus Vothen and Molletta from Gerolsteiner, Garcia Costa from Case de Pin, Fernandez from Sonia de Val, then Efemke from AG2R, Schleck, Sorensen and Kolobnev from CSC, Chop from Bouygues Telecom, Moret from France Desjeux, Poyol from Crédit Agricole, Eddie Angles from Quick-Step. This is just a quick shot of the Mur de Huy earlier today. Beautiful weather here, by the way, in the Ardennes, the real Ardennes, as opposed to the Flemish Ardennes, where you get the Tour of Flanders. And it's been wonderful across Northern Europe. It certainly was in the UK yesterday, and I think they've caught this weather now. Just to round up then, we've got Poyol from Crédit Agricole in the green and white, Eddie Angles from Quick-Step, Vladimir Bilica, another rider in the colours of Lotto. We've already mentioned Jurgen van den Broek. We've got Marco Pinotti, who, if you remember, wore the yellow jersey in the Tour de France for a while. And for High Road, there he is in the white jersey. You can see it very, very distinctive. White with the yellow and red lettering on it saying High Road. Alexander Kolobnev, we mentioned. And Philippe Gilbert is in this lead group as well. Gilbert really wanting to do something. He says he can't win. I don't know whether he's sandbagging or not, because Gilbert is a very, very good rider. He's already got up the Mur de Huy twice, and he is a Walloon. He's a French-speaking Belgium. What do you think today, Graham? Who do you really fancy for today's event?
I think you've got to look at the guys who were up there in the Amstel Gold Race. And most of those guys who were at the front in the Amstel were also guys who you saw at the front in this race last year, the Rebellins, the Valverdes, the Canegos, and I don't think you can go far wrong with looking at those guys today. But Gilbert, I think, is an outsider, especially as he's in this group now. I think he did say this morning that if he was to get to the finish with the Rebellins and the Canegos, then maybe he would struggle. It'd be a little bit too steep. But if he can get in and move earlier on, then he's got every chance, I would think.
Well, it did have a gap of about 250, but it's come down fairly rapidly. It's 149 now with 78 kilometers to go. There are 10 hills in this race. The Mur de Huy features 2 times before the finish, but don't count out the other ones as well. The Côtes d'Aref, the Haute-Bois, Thônes, the Bonnaville, Boisseau and Ain, before we end up at the Mur de Huy with just 77 kilometers to go now. Woods from its start in Charleroi. 76 kilometers to go now. They had 199.5 when they started. This is the front of the race with Andrea Molletta in the light blue of Gerolsteiner at the front. Just on his right-hand side is Alexander Kolobnev, the ever-strong Russian, coming to the front in the white of CSC. And just ahead of him is Nicky Sorensen. CSC still working on the front. They've been very, very active. They are the #1 world team. There is one of my favourite riders, Vincenti Garcia Costa. Just caught a glimpse of his face there. An ever-present domestique for Case de Pin. Francis Murray in the cloverleaf jerseyed Francis de Jure there. And that looks like Simon Spilak in the blue and pink of Lamprey. Watch for them, because he'll be sent up there to do something for Damiano Cunego a little later on. He's sent as the sort of the policeman, really. There's a big group here then, Graham, and some good riders in it. A couple of outsiders and some very good policemen here.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a change from what we've seen in the past few years. You've normally had a group of 3 or 4 or 5, 6 riders maybe going up the road, but this is an interesting one that they've let so many riders get away and they had a maximum lead of 2 minutes 35, but I see now that the peloton is reacting a little bit. One of the too many riders in that front who are dangerous, so they are reacting now. It's come down to 143, but yeah, there's 20 riders in that group. One guide, you just spotted him, 76 Spilak, didn't seem to come across in any of the communications so far, or what we heard on the radio. So I'll go through the riders. There's Foden and Molletta of Gerolsteiner, Garcia Costa of Kesteban, Fernandez of Sonia Deval, Efimkin of AG2R, Andy Schleck, Kolobnev and Sorensen of CSC's, Nicky Sorensen, Mertens of Rabobank, Shop Bouygues Telecom, Murray of Francis de Jure and Gilbert also of Francis de Jure, Poriol of Crédit Agricole, Engels from Quickstep, Beleka of Silence Lotto, and also Jürgen van den Broek. We saw the name Van den Broek earlier and we thought,
yes,
it can't be.
My word, is that Frank van den Broek?
It's Jürgen van den Broek. And we've also got Doin, Slipstream, Pinotti of High Road, and also 2 other riders from Kohlstrup are in this group, 243 Kopp and 245 Marcato. So it's a good group, but as you see, the gap's coming down very steadily now, down to 137.
Yeah, it's not going to stay away, is it? But I'm sure we'll see some counterattacks out from the group. The Efimkin, by the way, from AG2R, they are largely in white, if you're looking at them from overhead, with sort of blue and yellow in them as well. We'll try and point them out when we see them. But that's Vladimir Efimkin, by the way, not Alexander Efimkin. Alexander Efimkin is his twin and rides for Case de Pin and had such a fantastic Vuelta a España last year. Come on, move over to the right as the cars come through. Oh, hello.
Oh, always happens.
Right at the back, number 126 in the green is Remy Poriol from Crédit Agricole. Looks as though he's beginning to suffer, just having to get out the saddle just to keep on the pace again. Bingen Fernandez from Sonia Deval on the back there in the yellow. Interesting, you may see, and when you see those shots again, over the years, there is Vladimir Efimkin, by the way, AG2R Le Mondial, with the blue shorts and yellow panels and the white jersey. So much white in the peloton now, it's very difficult to tell. So you have to get a combination of both. You see the CSC riders there with, for want of a better phrase, advertising on their butt there. I actually came across the man who invented that. recently is a track rider who's a former world team pursuit champion and an Olympic team pursuit champion, Stefan Steinweg. Do you remember Stefan Steinweg?
Yeah.
He actually, when he hadn't got a sponsor, he managed to get one of his local shops to plaster some sponsorship over his backside, and turned up at a race, and within a month everybody else had filled those spaces. It was the very first time it happened, way back in the mid 1980s.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing. I mean, traditionally when I started racing, and earlier than that, the writing on the jerseys and the shorts was basically across the chest, across the back, and around the bottom of the shorts. So you, and often on the legs, you couldn't actually read what the whole sponsor was. And then it changed to sort of down the leg, and I think the first team that did that was Charleroi, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, within a few months, everybody's doing it the same.
Yes.
And the same with this, the camera and the TV work, people have started realising, well, actually, most of the time, you couldn't read most of the advertising, so the back is where a lot of the camera shots are, and also the side view shots under the arms there. So it's an interesting one that somebody actually invented.
Yeah, Stefan Steinweg, yeah, he's still looking fairly good. I mean, he says, said to him, how's it going these days? And he was at the Herne Hill track meeting in London at Easter, and he said, well, you know, I'd struggle now to get down below a certain weight, 80 kilos or whatever it is now. And he said, got a little bit of a, how should we say, a good living spread on him. But he's still riding really well, and a very thoroughly pleasant man. I like a man who can come straight off the track and head for the beer tent. That is always the mark of a good rider, I think. A bit like your good self, Graham.
Oh, yes, I wish.
These guys are not that keen on this sort of racing, are they? The Euskaltel boys in the orange here from the Basque Country. Look how they're suffering here at the back.
Yeah, traditionally in the past, the Spanish teams, I think we've talked about it before, that they never really ventured north very often, but nowadays with the Pro Tour events and things like that, they have to send riders to these events. And we've seen that over the last few years, the Spanish riders have done a little bit better in these sort of races, the Ardennes Classics.
Well, the peloton is definitely upping the pace. We saw from Team Milram another. That's a very classy jersey, by the way. They don't have a huge amount of advertising on their jerseys in the blue with the white stripes down the side. They are quite a classy outfit. And we saw Peter Velec, the Slovakian, go swiftly out the back. Interesting, we were talking about twins just now. Vladimir Efemkin, Alexander Efemkin isn't here, but the two Velec boys are here. That's Peter Velec and Martin Velec. Martin is wearing 186, Peter is wearing 187. They are twins. I think I've had this question before, but there are a number of family cycling or families cycling who have twins in the peloton, but those are the two really high-profile ones.
Yeah, it's quite common to get brothers, but twins is not one you come across too often. You know, obviously some very famous cycling families, Simon, the Petersons, who had more than 3 or 4 people who went through the pro ranks and actually did well. So it's quite common to have that, but twins, it's unusual.
Yeah, going back a long way, of course, the Pelessiers at the beginning of the last century, they had, I think, about 3 or 4 who were all professional riders. This then looks like Marco Pinotti at the front for High Road. Interesting, they've had about 3 different kits so far, and apparently there's another one on the way. Which makes it an absolute nightmare for you at home to follow and us to commentate on. But I actually quite like this one. Black shorts, white jersey with yellow and red. When I first saw it, I thought that looks absolutely appalling, but it grows on me and it's actually quite easy to spot. So we've got Francis de Jure on the front. Their outfit hasn't changed for many years. Just look for the clover leaf on it. Then 2 CSC riders. Then the dark red of Silence Lotto. A second Francis de Jure rider coming up. I would suspect that is Gilbert. Then 2 Gerolsteiners in the light blue. That is Moletta, along with Marcus Fodden, very talented. He's got a brother, Marcus Fodden, and I can't remember what his brother's name is now, but there we go. 69 kilometers to go. 125 is the gap. It's all going to start coming together, and they are really starting to hit the hills now. Here is the Bordeaux, 4.2%. 100, I was going to say 199.5 kilometers is the overall length of this Flèche Wallonne race. Slightly shorter than the previous Amstel Gold race, certainly shorter than Milan-San Remo, which is the longest of the classics, but has kicked off the season down in Italy. They have 66 kilometers still to go as they approach the Mur de Huy, the wall, as they call it. They've already been up it twice, running eastwards from Charleroi. 1 minute and 34 seconds is the gap from the peloton to our 20 breakaway riders. Some very, very good names in the front group. Marcus Fothon and André Mulete from Gerolsteiner, Vincenti Garcia Costa from Case de Pan, Bingen Fernandez from Sonia Deval, Vladimir Efimkin from AG2R Le Mondial, Andy Schleck, another set of brothers. We were talking about brothers a little earlier. Andy Schleck and Frank Schleck, both, of course, riding for CSC. Nicky Sorensen is also in this group, as is Alexander Kolobnev. 3 CSC riders, looking good for them. Johan Schopp, the guy in the Bouygues Telecom, the blue with the blue and orange and white roundel in the centre there of Bouygues Telecom. Swiss rider, used to ride for Phonak at one time, I seem to remember. Moret and Philippe Gilbert from Francis de Jeur, Remy Poriol from Crédit Agricole, Eddie Angles from Quickstep, Vladimir Belika and Jürgen van den Broek right at the back here for Silence Lotto. Also Marco Pinotti for High Road, and some very, very good riders. And Simon Spilak, who's come across from the Lampre outfit. And just ahead of Jürgen van den Broek, you'll see it again in the orange and blue with this sort of strange Argyle patterning on it, is Team Slipstream. Slipstream have done exceptionally well. It's Jason Donald, I think, or maybe it's Huub Deun who's gone.
Yeah.
Is it Huub Deun?
Jason Donald was in this group earlier.
Yep.
I did get dropped after the second passage.
Huub Deun, the he's fairly slight build Dutchman, not so big as some of the others you see around, but he's managed to make it across this group, which is pretty good going. There he is. You can see him about 1, 2, 3, 4 up, just obscured at the moment by Jürgen van den Broek, as I think it's Efimkin taking on some fluid from the neutral service car, the Mavic service car there. They all have their wheels on there just in case, which means the team cars are nowhere to be found at the moment. This is the head of the race. You've ridden this race yourself, Graham. Graham Jones sitting next to me, by the way. You've ridden this race and you finished in the front group back in, what, 81, I think?
Yeah, yep. Back too far, I'm afraid.
No, we're not going to go there. But did you actually like this race? The reason I asked the question before you answer is we're doing Amstel Gold at the weekend just prior to this. I asked Sean immediately because Sean absolutely hated Amstel Gold. And 2 questions, really. Did you like this race, and what did you think of Amstel Gold?
I did. I actually like both races. I'm surprised Sean didn't like the Amstel Gold race. I thought I don't think there was any race that Sean didn't like doing. just to like racing and race so much, and won every sort of race or every type of race that you could imagine. But no, I always like this race. It's a race that actually suited me in a way that it was plenty of climbing, you know, not necessarily with the big mountains. But one thing I always found, I used to be quite often in good form right at the beginning of the season through February and March, and usually by the time we came into the classics in April, I'd had to ride Flanders Roubaix mainly for other people, and I was sort of like dropping off a little bit. So it was always a little bit difficult in this. But I did finish. I was reasonably, I would say, placed, but you know, to the forefront of the race a couple of times. 81, 83, I think.
What do you think it takes to win this race?
A lot of concentration. I mean, you know, you've got to be forever near the front. It is a race where it's the climbs come thick and fast. I mean, we've seen today in the past that this race can often be affected by bad weather, as also the Liège-Bastogne-Liège. But you've got to be pretty tough, pretty good all-rounder. And also, I think you do need quite a strong team in this race as well. There are often quite a bit in between some of the climbs, and you need a bit of help to do some chasing, or need some help in the finale. I mean, we've seen here that CSC are on a great version with 3 riders.
I was just going to say, actually, they are the team that have got the best number of men up the road, but I don't think it's going to work out for them, is it, at the moment, because this group's a little bit too big to stay away.
I think there are just too many, yeah, and there are also we've seen there are teams there with a couple of teams with 2 riders in, CSC with 3 riders, so there are obviously quite a lot of teams behind who haven't got anybody in it, and it's in their interest now to start bringing this break back, and the gap is coming down. It's not sort of coming down very quickly, but it's coming down just nice and steadily, so the peloton at this moment in time don't seem to be too worried about it.
Yeah, well, Kees de Pang are the team who are doing the work on the front of the peloton to try and bring things back at the moment. We saw actually Oscar Pereiro, winner officially now of the 2006 Tour de France, doing a lot of the work pulling on the front. That, of course, is for Alejandro Valverde, who was near the front at Amstel Gold and didn't quite have the legs. Maybe it's amazing what 2 or 3 days can do, Graham. He might well have the legs today. It's a little bit steeper, and he's won this race before.
Well, he has openly said he's concentrating everything on the Tour this year, but he came here with reasonable form, but although he said he's not at 100%, but when you've got a class rider like that, it just shows you that he can get some good placings in these sort of races, and I expect him to be there today.
.121 is the gap. 62 kilometers still left to go, and we did have 2 or 3 riders trying to get off the front. It looks to me as if Gilbert is probably been sandbagging in the press, or trying to do something. He probably knows he can't make it up the final gradient of the Mur de Huy because it is a steep old climb. I know that would have suited you.
Yeah, it would have done. We never actually finished up in here in my day. I mean, this is one of those races a bit like Paris Tours and Bois-Chaville. They've changed. They've had so many different formats over the years. This has finished and started all over the place and has changed frequently. But it seems to have settled into a route now with this finish at the Mur de Huy, and it is a spectacular finish. It's nice to see something different in the classics that just normally finish in a town centre on a flat finish. So it gives it a little bit more excitement, I think, to finish at the top of the hill.
Unsurprisingly, then, this race was dominated by the Belgians for the first half of its history, and since then, since in the last maybe 30 years or so, 20 years maybe, it's become more and more international. The first winner, 1936, was Philippe de Meersman, the Belgian. And there were Belgian victories all the way up till 1948, in fact, and that was the first non-Belgian victory. The stranglehold was broken by Fermo Camellini back in 1948. Some great riders have been part of the history of this race. Raymond Poulidor won in 1963. Rick van Steenbergen a bit further back in 1958. Stan Ockers, the great Stan Ockers, won in 1955. Ferdy Kubler, the Swiss rider. Was it Kubler or was it Kobler who was the peddler of charm? I can't remember. It's one of the two. Kubler, the peddler of charm, they call him, for his style and dapper appearance. And the year you finished in the front bunch, Danny Willems won the race, a Belgian, back in 1981. He actually went on to be a DS, a director sportif at DFL a couple of years ago when it was being run as a British team. Rebellin, of course, winning last year. A number of Italians in the last 20 years or so that you would recognise. Rebellin, Danilo Di Luca, Francesco Casagrande, won in 2000 when he was riding for Vinny Calderola. Michele Bartoli. And Frenchman, Laurent Jalabert has won twice. Moreno Argentin actually won this race 3 times. But the Belgians, the last time they actually took a race here was Mario Arts back in 2002. Since then, it's been Igor Astoloa from Spain, Rebellin in 2004, Di Luca in 2005, Valverde, the Spaniard, in 2006, and Rebellin again last year. Well, this is all breaking up here now, Graham, as they hit the next climb.
60 kilometers to go, so probably less than an hour and a half racing, so we're really getting into the finale now, and we expect this group, as the peloton does get closer and closer to this front group's going to be, it's always the same when you have a breakaway, so it's always somebody wants to be the last one to get caught, so this group will split, and you'll probably split into 2 or 3 groups, I think, before the peloton actually come down on them. This looks like quite a narrow climb.
Yeah, it is, and make sure that the cars are well off the road. It's something that Sean was actually complaining about in Amstel Gold when he was racing there. I mean,
that's always been the same, the Amstel Gold race.
Yeah,
it's always been cars. It's a bit like some of the problems we face racing in this country, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but,
and we mentioned that, by the way.
we do have to realise that these some obstacles do happen in other countries as well. You know, other races do have that sort of thing to cope with, and we see there in Belgium, I think just a couple of kilometres back down there was a parked car on the left hand side, so not everybody adheres to sort of rules of the Belgian cycle racing, and you know, can't be bothered to move their car.
I was going to ask actually, because you've been involved for many years now, closely associated with the Tour of Britain and its latest incarnation, and you know, there's always bits of bad press come out now and again. You know, people do like to take a knock at it, don't they? But as you just well pointed out, it's not all sweetness and light on the continent either.
No, I mean, I've spoken to recently. I think I was speaking to John Herity at our launch of the week, and he says you'll be amazed at what goes on in some of these other races abroad now. You know, if you're not in that front group, then they're not as well protected as everybody would think, you know, from oncoming cars and things like that. And I think last year, I mean, we are making big progress on it, the racing in this country, but it's such a congested country and so many vehicles on the road that it's always going to be an uphill battle. But we're doing everything we can to improve that. And but say that's not necessarily nice to see, but people can appreciate when you watch some of these classics, even something as big as the Amstel Gold Race. There are parked cars. I mean, I've seen accidents caused by it in the Amstel Gold Race in the past, so it does happen.
In your opinion, as we see the gap is now just a shade over a minute with under 60 kilometres to go, in your opinion then, what is it about races in Britain that or we need to change in Britain to make things like the Tour of Britain as good as the races on the continent?
I think another thing is the public awareness of the event, and also you know, what it's all about. I mean, a lot of people just don't understand what the racing's about. I mean, the police and the authorities are gradually now sort of realising what needs to be done, and it's just a steady progress. But public awareness really of the thing, understanding of the cycling is a little bit. I mean, we know that. I mean, 99% of the cases, the British public, you know, they've got to hold up at a junction. Then they're fine with it. You know, they've watched the race go past. But there's always there's a small percentage of people who get upset that they're being delayed 10 minutes to go to the shops and things like that. But that's one of the things. We can't get closed roads in this country. I mean, we saw it with the Tour de France, and but that's a whole different ball game. That Tour de France has to have closed roads, but there are very few races that do have completely closed roads.
So it's a cultural shift that's necessary. Well, we're under.
I think that's a good line. Cultural shift.
We're under a minute then, and 54 seconds at 59 kilometres, and they are going to be wound in fairly shortly. And the rain is beginning to come down here. We saw the cameraman wiping the front of the lens, and I think this is going to cause problems. Whoa, just as we say that, oh my word, one of the riders immediately down. That looks to me like David Lopez on the floor. It is David Lopez. I'm not quite sure who the Euskaltel rider is. Looks, well, it's very difficult to tell who the Euskaltel rider is on the floor at the moment. It looks a little bit like... is it Ruben Perez who's hit the floor, or Igor Martinez? It's Martinez, yeah. Igor Martinez who's hit the deck, and that doesn't look good for David Lopez. Very talented rider, and once the rain has started coming down, it makes this very, very slippery indeed. That looks nasty. He's still attached to the bike. Now, I think just a touching of wheels of these two. Well, Igor Martinez, former of Discovery Channel, and now of Euskaltel on the ground. That doesn't look good for David Lopez. Philippe Gilbert is the man in the white and blue there in the middle of your shot. He is a Walloon, a French-speaking Belgium. In fact, he's with the Liège-Bastogne-Liège, which we have at the weekend. The route actually goes past his house almost at the bottom of the one of the climbs. This rain is coming down real heavy now. It's suddenly the skies have opened, and I know back in the UK the weather this morning was nice, and well, as I said, nice. Certainly in the south of England it was overcast but reasonably warm, not that bad, and all of a sudden the heavens have opened, and I think it's being blown across. I know the weather forecast for the UK was it was going to be blown eastwards, and it looks as though it's landed slap bang in the middle of the Ardennes at the moment. But this is a feature of the Ardennes, isn't it? It does tend to be nice one minute and rain the next.
It is, yeah. I mean, how many times have we seen snow in Liège-Bastogne-Liège? But it does produce really epic races, and we've seen some great rides by people like Hino, and I think, you know, it just create a whole different sort of atmosphere to the race when it's wet and cold. But also this could change the whole sort of complexity of the race towards the end now with the descents. We've seen that one crash already as soon as it started drizzling. So this may well change the pursuit as well of the peloton.
I was going to say, does this play into the hands of the group ahead? It would appear to me as though it would do.
I think a little bit, yeah, because they're already settled in this front group now, and it's a lot more difficult on these sort of roads in the wet weather to organise a chase. So it may well prolong. It may not make them stay away, but it may well prolong their time out in front.
Well, let's just run through exactly who is in this front group. That is Andy Schleck on the front for CSC in the white, with the red letters CSC in the middle. In the centre, in the dark black, in the black and the dark red, is Silence Lotto's rider Jürgen van den Broek. As they go through Goyer now. I'm just going to run through the names before we pick out individuals. Fothano Maletta from Gerolsteiner, Garcia Costa from Kees de Pang, Fernandez from Sonia de Waal, Efimkin from AG2R Le Mondial, Andy Schleck we've mentioned, Nicky Sorensen and Alexander Kolobnev, all from CSC in this group. Johan Top from Bouygues Telecom, Francis Moret and Philippe Gilbert, both of Francis de Jeux. Remy Poriol from Crédit Agricole, Eddie Angels of Quickstep, Vladimir Belaka also of Silence Lotto, Dern of the team Slipstream Chipotle, the American outfit in this group by Marco Pinotti of High Road, and a very, very good group indeed. Right at the back there, number 52, is Alexander Kolobnev. This is nasty, nasty, nasty weather now. I suppose all they can think about now, really, Graham, is perhaps that this rain will wash the roads clean. That's all they can hope for, really.
Yeah, I mean, obviously when it's been dry for a little bit and then the rain comes down, then the first few minutes of when the rain is when the roads are the most greasy. But this does generally wash up. But it also washes grit and gravel onto the road as well, which can make it more make more punches possibility. And
yeah, it looks like Schleck, Andy Schleck, second in the Giro d'Italia last year. On the front, he's only a youngster. I think he's only about 22 this year, I think, isn't he? 22, 23 this year. He's not very old. He's 2 or 3 years younger than his brother Frank Schleck, and a lot of people saying he's even better. Marco Pinotti is the man right at the back, Team High Road. You can see plastered all over the back of his shorts. Wore the yellow jersey in the Tour de France last year for a few days, hung on to it very nicely. He's well known as being the sort of rider who relies on himself, shall we say, as in terms of talent, and just digs in there and grits his teeth and is a big fighter. Very good time trialist, Marco Pinotti, former national time trial champion. Not that there's a huge amount of time trials in Italy. Marzio Bruzigin seems to swap with him most of the time, and the rain is coming down pretty heavy indeed. 40 seconds though is the gap. It looks like the peloton are not letting up on their chase though.
No, it's been coming down steadily all this time now, so despite the fact that the rain isn't really putting the peloton off at the moment. But well, I expect to see, we're coming up to the Côte de Tournes, the next climb, and no doubt we'll probably see more attacks from this leading group, maybe reduce the size of the group, make it more manageable.
The Côte de Tournes, after 150 kilometres, give or take half a kilometre. It's about a K long, fairly steep, over 7%, and it will really start to test some legs. There are some tired legs in this group now.
Yeah, well, that's the cold weather. I mean, they've had they've had the warmer weather at the start of the first 150 kilometres or so, and then now this rain. This will really make those legs sort of muscles hard and sore, really, and change of rhythm on the climbs, and then the descents, the muscles get cold again. It does make it difficult, and one rider might perform well in the warmer weather might not necessarily perform well in this weather now.
What about yourself? I've seen some lovely shots of you covered in head to foot in grease and grime and wet. Would you be able to tolerate this sort of weather?
Yes, I didn't mind the cold weather at all. I very rarely put me off from training in my sort of, well, say my earlier professional sort of career. Maybe a bit later on I thought twice about it sometimes, but But no, I trained in all weathers, snow, rain, hail, whatever it was in the early days. So no, I got on quite well with the cold weather. Didn't particularly like it, but I seemed to support it okay. I did prefer the warmer weather.
Proper hard man, is what he said.
Tough up north.
Tough up north, grim up north. Well, yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Some riders are capable, as you say, tolerating it better than others. That's exactly the phrase Sean always uses. They tolerate it more than others. Not many people actually relish it, but there are some riders out there who know that you know, there are going to be colleagues who are suffering, and they'll just give it absolute death.
Well, I can remember when I was racing, there was those riders who it was raining and cloudy and horrible, wet and cold, and he used to be rubbing his hands together because they knew sometimes that they performed well in it, and it stopped other people performing well in the cold weather. So I remember one particular person, there's a guy called Pierre Bazot. He loved it. You never saw him in a cape, or very rarely in arm warmers or overshoes. And Duke Lola also used to like racing in this sort of weather.
Yeah, twice a winner of Paris-Roubaix in dreadful weather as well. Looks like Jürgen van den Broek from Silence-Lotto is having a go on the Côte de Tourne.
Ooh, that looked a bit close.
That was a bit dicey, wasn't it? And I think there's going to be all sorts of problems behind, because, well, anywhere now. Oh, look at the amount of standing water on the road as another motorcycle goes past and just sprays up an enormous rooster tail. And this is now going to be down for the hard men. And the one man who isn't feeling particularly hard there is Slipstream's Herb Duin. Oh dear. Had enough, I think.
Not enjoying himself at all, as I thought. This group now starting to split.
Well, that looks like in the light blue on the right-hand side of your shot is Moletta. I think it's Jürgen van den Broek at the front of affairs in the dark outfit. Overhead shot, you can see the red as part of Silence-Lotto. On the left-hand side, I think that's... well, they've got two CSCs in here. One of these will be Kolobnev, and it looks like Kolobnev actually is the lead of those two CSC riders, because he's got that sort of rocking style. I really like Kolobnev as a rider. He is ultra tough, and I tell you what, he comes at the beginning of the season, and boy, he looks lean.
Yeah, that's the guys who look after themselves in the winter, do plenty of training, and can often profit at this start of the year. But riders are really going out the back now. Gilbert now being dropped, so maybe he was right. This race really wasn't for him. So
that's hard luck, isn't it, for him? Because I mean, he looks like he's suffering already, and he'd love to do something in the Ardennes Classics.
Yeah, the peloton is also now on this climb, and you can see that they've obviously accelerated considerably down to 27 seconds.
Look at this, Moletta being tailed off now, and with 27 seconds, it's two CSC riders coming to the front, and Jürgen van den Broek looks around himself. I think it's van den Broek looking around himself, going, "Oh, hang on a second, guys." But Gilbert, not a happy bunny.
No, I think his race is over.
I'd say so. And pushing on. That's a great overhead shot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really, really nice. Picture breakup will come now because the weather is getting nasty, especially if there's any thunder and lightning. It'll just attack the feed. And that's the way of it. They are actually giving
over the Prime now for that Côte de Tourne.
Well, it's Andy Schleck is the guy at the front. Big, tall Andy Schleck. It can get confused fairly easily with his brother. But second in the Giro d'Italia. Well, that was a fabulous performance last year by Schleck. I mean, I don't think anybody suspected he'd end up second.
No, not for such a young rider as well. It just shows you what promise he has. But I had heard from for a few years that when Frank came through, that the younger brother was better. And we may well see that.
I take it all back. Kolobnev is not in this threesome. There we are. That's what you get for sticking your head on the block. Looks like Simon Spilak on the right-hand side of the shot in the pink and blue of Lamprey, deciding that he's going to get back up to these front guys. He's not going to let them go. Spilak, a very, very talented rider, and tough as old boots, actually. So he's well placed in this group. And how far back is he now? He knows that there's two CSC riders up the road, and that's a dangerous move for them. Well, they've got a substantial gap.
Yeah, it's a good move by those three riders. Again, we said CSC were in a strong position with three riders, so that's going to help, even if the peloton does come up. The fact that the CSC riders, it will also help the CSC riders come up in the peloton behind. But these three riders, Schleck, Van den Broek and Nicky Sorensen, have really made the difference from that breakaway of 20 riders.
Well, what are they looking at, their Team CSC here, Graham? Because they've got a really, really strong team. Let's just have a run down of them. Frank Schleck, who got beaten into second place at the beginning of the week in Amstel Gold. They've got Alexander Kolobnev, we've seen in this front group. Karsten Kroon, a very strong Dutchman. Gustav Erik Larsen, we saw him very active in Amstel Gold. Carlos Sastre, Andy Schleck, we've seen in the front. Chris Sorensen and Nicky Sorensen. What are they really after?
It's very difficult to say, actually. I mean, when you've got a team that strong, it's quite often difficult to sort of say you're working for one rider. So they've probably got 2 or 3 riders that they may well be looking at to sort of like protect, to probably not throw all their eggs in one basket. But we also probably coming to this, we don't know necessarily what the form is of some of these riders either. I mean, we've seen Sastre there, but this is probably his first sort of real tough outing of the year. He's getting 2 months now to the Tour de France, so that's what he'll be targeting. So he's probably here as much as anything to make up the numbers and for training and to help the Schlecks if he can.
So these are your front men. With under 50k to go now, it's Andy Schleck, Nicky Sorensen, both of CSC in the white with the black shorts, and right at the back here also with black shorts but with a black and red jersey of Silence Lotto is Jürgen van den Broek. Well, the weather really has broken here and it's changed the whole nature of this race, and they come to the last 50 kilometers with quite dangerous roads here of this Belgian classic race, Flèche Wallonne. The first victor, Philippe de Meersman, the Belgian, back in 1936. So this is typical Belgian weather because it was dry and fine earlier on in the race for the first 120 kilometers. Now look at it, the rain is absolutely pelting down. It was bouncing off the road earlier. And the group of 20 who were away at the front have now been whittled down with an attack from the 2 CSC riders in white at the front here, Andy Schleck and Nicky Sorensen. And it was all started off by the man in 3rd spot in this little trio here, the darker colours of Jürgen van den Broek. And another couple of riders trying to come up and join them now. Marco Pinotti of High Road coming through. And the Rabobank rider is Paul Martens. High Road in the white with the red and yellow on them. And that makes 5. That's a good group. That's a good size group, isn't it, Graham?
Yeah. Then we've seen that acceleration on the last climb. The peloton now drop back to 50 seconds of this leading group of 3 riders. And if these other 2 do get on, that will really make a nice little group. Some strong riders there.
Not far to the Côte de Bonville, which is the next climb, even steeper actually, 7.9% average gradient, just over a kilometre long. So they're all short and sharp. And there's some more riders coming. Because is that Addy Angles? No, I think it's an AG2R rider who's near the front. Is that Vladimir Fimkin? Definitely has come across to these other 3. So if Fimkin and the Rabobank rider is Paul Martens and Marco Pinotti from High Road. Well, that's good. 6 is as good as 5. If you get more than about 8 or 9, then it starts to break up a weeny bit. Because nobody really wants to do the work, do they?
No, and also the chasing, like as we said, the chasing on these sort of roads is a lot more difficult for the peloton. We've seen how careful these riders are going down the descents. The roads do really look like ice. It's very slippy.
Yeah, I think the rain itself has eased off slightly at the moment, but that doesn't mean it's any less dangerous, because just look at the amount of water that's being thrown up from the back tyres of some of these riders. Whoa, big attack going in from Vladimir Fimkin from AG2R. He's decided the pace isn't fast enough, Graham. He wants to keep it going and try and stay away as long as possible.
Well, it looked like a bit of hesitation, those 3 riders in front, as the other 3 were catching them, that, well, what do we do now? And if Fimkin's just sort of decided to attack, and maybe hopefully that's lifted the other 5. They start working together, because if they don't work together, they won't stand any chance at all of staying away.
Yeah, Andy Schleck having a quick go at him, I think. There's coming past him and going, what on earth are you doing? Yeah, he's not happy. He's saying to Jürgen van den Broek, now you go through and do something. Had a few harsh words to say to Vladimir Fimkin, then did Andy. How much does your status go up in the peloton, Graham, when you've become a young rider like Andy Schleck has and taken 2nd in a Grand Tour? I mean, your status within the peloton must have risen tremendously.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you're a new pro, you're often a little bit scared. But as soon as you win a race, you're accepted amongst the pros, you know, the older statesmen. So it's phenomenal what he did last year. So, but he'll be up there with the big guys now. I mean, he's the top rider himself.
So he's the sort of guy who's going to call the shots in that league group then, really.
At the moment, yeah, I would think he's. There's nobody, you know, in theory as good as he is. He's a better rider than all of them. So he won't be scared of any of these riders.
Well, Vladimir Flimkin. Best result so far this year, 15th in the Grand Prix Miguel Indurain. Fantastic result in the Vuelta last year, remember. Got a stage victory. Flimkin, when he's riding for Kees de Pang, he's moved over. Oh no, there's a crash here in the peloton. Let's go back to this one straight away. Well, Sonia de Val there on the floor. Cut. That looks like Angel Gomez Marcante to me for Sonia de Val, the rider from Slipstream Chipotle. Sorry about the picture breakup. Very, very difficult to tell who it is. It's not David Miller, I can tell you that now, because there's no national champions jersey on the deck from that. There's a CSC rider down there. There's that Frank Schleck on the floor.
There's several riders down there. I mean, that looked, it was right. There was bikes on the floor and they couldn't see any riders. So whether the riders had gone into the hedge or not, I don't know. But that looked like a fairly nasty crash.
Right, I'm just looking down at the CSC start sheet, and it looked an awful lot. It was a tall, lanky rider. It could well be Frank Schleck. If not, it'll be Gustav Erik Larsen, a very, very slim rider, and a big pile-up. Now for the Sonia de Val, it will be Angel Gomez Marcante. That's definitely him who's had a fall. And you know, he had a terrible fall in the Tour de Basque Country last year, awful fall, and he's had another one this beginning of the season. Here are the front three. They're being slowly pegged back by the chasing group, and it looks like Simon Spilak from Lampre doing a lot of the work still on the front. The group of six, the three, joined by the other three, Vladimir Flimkin and Marco Pinotti and Paul Martens. They're all going to come back together again. Marcus Fothn suffering at the back here, number 2. Oh dear. And digging in, Marcus Fothn, very talented rider. Again, another young guy, has had some good results in the mountains.
Was coming to a standstill there. It looks well overgeared.
Yeah, well, Marcus is a very good time trialist, isn't he? He challenged for the young riders jersey a couple of years ago in the Tour de France, and actually lost out to Damiano Cunego, who won Amstel Gold, of course, at the weekend.
Yeah, we've not seen any of the big riders yet, really.
No, none of them at all. Well,
no.
by the exception of Philippe Gilbert.
Yeah, very little shots of the peloton so far.
I guess it depends where you class as a big rider. We were just talking about Andy Schleck. We mustn't discount him.
Yeah, just to give the favourites that we've seen in last year's race, and also the guys who were doing well in the Amstel Gold race at the weekend. So,
well, let's just run through this. Who would you expect to see at the end, Graham?
Well, whether this weather's going to put people off like Valverde, I'm not sure. But I would still expect to see a Cunego and a Rebellin. Rebellin won't be too worried about these conditions before, as he's proved by his performances in the past in Flèche Wallonne and Liège. So I think it may well be suiting Rebellin at the moment. Also, maybe one or two of the Belgians. Yeah,
that's an interesting point. How much extra advantage will there be for some of the Belgians? You know, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Ricardo Rico doing something as well, if he can pull something out of the bag. He's got a teammate up in this front group, Bingen Fernandez in the yellow there, from Sonia de Val. Ricardo Rico, well, there's a lot of people say that Ricardo Rico is a bit more mouth than trousers. I don't think he is. I mean, he's a very talented rider, but he doesn't half shoot it off a bit, doesn't he?
Yeah. Sometimes you need that, though. You want a bit of banter in the races, otherwise it can get a bit dull.
Damiano Cunego we've talked about from Lampre, won Amstel Gold. Robert Gessing, what about Robert Gessing from Rabobank? Because we saw how well he went in Paris-Nice, and he was working so hard the other day for Oscar
Put in a couple of amazing turns. I remember seeing him. I haven't seen anybody with a grimace or trying that hard on the front for a while. He was quite impressive. But yeah, he could be up there as well today. He's obviously still held his form from Paris-Nice.
Well, we haven't mentioned one rider who won this race back in 2003, Igor Astaloa, former world champion, riding for Milram. And he was in the final attack in Amstel Gold, and that often is a little sign that perhaps your form's coming together. He's lurking at the moment. Do you think we might see him, or is his day gone?
No, I think we may do. It is difficult. I mean, yeah, some riders have such a great year and then they disappear. They have illnesses or whatever, and sometimes it's very difficult to come back. I mean, he has been very quiet for a while, but when you've got a certain amount of talent and class, and you can never rule them off completely.
Well, the front six are now being bridged across by two riders. The work was all done by Simon Spilak and Johan Chop, and it looks to me there as though another of the Ceylon Slaughter riders is coming across, and also Bileka, Vladimir Bileka, and he's just taking on the back now, and they're dragging a few. Eddie Angles, I think, was the other rider, the quick-step rider.
Yeah, he was there, and Spilak just behind, so we may well be seeing another group form of perhaps a dozen riders.
Here's Maletta again, having been dropped on the hills, has now got back again to the front. Back to the front, you know what I mean. 41 kilometers to go, and this front group consisting of some very good riders. We've lost some of them, but at the moment Marcus Fothen and Andrea Maletta, both of Gerolsteiner, in the light blue there. It's Maletta nearest the camera. Then we have three CSC riders. Alexander Kolobnev, as Vladimir Fimkin has another go. He's a tough old bird, actually, or a tough young bird. Yeah, Fimkin just wants to push the pace on a little bit, I think. I mean, he's not really giving it an attack. He's just speeding up a bit. If the impetus goes out of this, then people will come up to them.
Well, that's it. We've seen that as soon as these gut riders have got back together. Now we've got this bigger front group that they're all looking at each other again and seeing who's going to start forcing the pace. So if Fimkin again has sort of re-injected a little pace to that, saying, come on guys, if we don't do something, then we're going to get caught. So I think Peloton's now at 31 seconds, so you know, they've got to keep it going, otherwise they'll be caught in no time.
Yep, 31 seconds is the blink of an eye, really, when it comes down to it. And if Fimkin and Jürgen van den Broek, who's go on the front, just trying to keep that pace up. There's some riders having a fairly decent outing today. Here is Bingen Fernandez at the back. Alberto Bingen Fernandez. Well, the riders, just a little bit of impetus gone out of them, and the 25 seconds now is the gap. And look, if Fimkin is just not happy with this, away he goes again, and that's a far more concerted attack. He's seen that the group's impetus has just gone, it's fallen flat, and he's gone away again. He must be feeling very, very strong indeed, because Vladimir Fimkin has gone on the attack out of this group now. There he is, 39 kilometers still to go, and there doesn't seem to be a tremendous amount of response behind. Who's gone with him? It's Nicky, is it Nicky Sorensen? I think it probably is, from CSC. CSC in the pound seats, really, because they've got three riders who could do something, and they're letting Gerolsteiner do the work to bring it all back together at the moment.
Yeah, well, the CSC with three riders in there have got to at least have one of these riders with every move now, and they've proved with their forcing the pace back there with two in that leading group of three that they're all going well. So they will just be vigilant. Every time there's a breakaway, one of them needs to be in it, and you can see the other CSCs in that chasing group there now not forcing the pace at all. It looks like Van den Broek as well, again trying to get across to the front too.
He's been particularly active, hasn't he? Doesn't want to let things go away. Vladimir Fimkin then. Is there Kolobnev actually on his tail? Very, very difficult. It's no, that's not right. I don't think that's right. I think that's the wrong graphic, but we'll double check that. It doesn't look like Andy Schleck to me. It looks far too short, but I may well be wrong, and most often am. 22 seconds is the gap between those leading two riders and the peloton. They definitely don't want to let it get away. Let's have a quick look at this man at the front. No, it's not Andy Schleck. Surely not. I'm sure we'll see a revised graphic fairly shortly. Looks to me actually like Nicky Sorensen, but
I think you're right.
yeah, we'll just check that for you. Nasty, nasty, nasty weather, and there's still some big hills to come. We've gone up the Côte de Bonvie. It's the Borisou next, which is a much longer hill, and that may actually take it out of people's legs, because if you can hit that in the big ring at 4%, Graham, they're going to go really hard up this one.
Yeah, again with the cold weather, the cold muscles, so it would probably be a lot harder than it would normally be. But that's the 30 kilometres ago. I think we've seen before that there's often a lot of action on this climb.
Yeah, there's still a little way to go on till we reach it, though. And the Côte de Bonvie is just behind us, and these two riders toughing it out at the front on the left-hand side of the shot. Vladimir Fimkin now slipping into the wheel of Nicky Sorensen, and just trying to get some sort of gap, and they're going pretty good at it, because Jurgen van den Broek behind here is caught in no man's land, still hasn't got across to them.
No, he struggled. Looked like he closed the gap, or some of the gap, fairly quickly, but these two now have got their heads down, and he now looks to be in a bit of limbo in between the two groups.
Well, they're not hanging about, are they? Oh, getting very close behind that motorcycle, and just taking a little bit of a tow when they can. It's amazing how often you see it. They have to be so careful that they don't get hauled up in front of the commissaires for that, but in these sort of situations they become absolutely past masters.
Well, there are often cases where you can't avoid getting involved with the motorbikes. We saw it in Flanders again.
So one man trying to bridge the gap across to our leading two riders, Vladimir Fimkin of AG2R Le Mondial and Nicky Sorensen of CSC. The Ardennes Classics are really living up to their geographical legend, because as soon as we've hit these range of hills in the far east of Belgium, the weather has broken, the rain is pouring down now, and two men only left from the original break of 20. Nicky Sorensen from CSC, when the cameraman has finished wiping the lens, is the man in the back with the black shorts and white jersey on, and ahead of him in the white jersey and blue shorts is Vladimir Fimkin from AG2R Le Mondial. Stuck in the middle of no man's land is Jurgen van den Broek in the dark. In the light here is Eddie Engels. So two Belgians, or Eddie Engels, sorry, the Dutchman, trying to get across to the front two riders, and more effort coming in from the peloton now with just 10 seconds gap. And it's Kees de Pang in the dark colours, the black and the red, with the box in the middle of the jersey, who are trying to shut down the breakaway. Now, Fimkin has known he's going to have to really go for it. I wonder, Graham, whether he's working for somebody like Nocentini, because if Nocentini's in good form, he could certainly fly up the Muur at the end. Well,
while Fimkin's in front, then it is preparing the ground for his teammates. So, but he realises that you're better off, for me, in my mind, being in a small group in front than sitting in the peloton at the moment. Well, that gap, by the way, 9 seconds was to the two chasers. The peloton's still 27 seconds. So, but
my mistake. Sorry about that.
Peloton still not letting this get too far away. So I still expect the winner of this race to come from the main group behind.
Yeah, they do seem to be letting them dangle out for a bit at the moment. But Nicky Sorensen here in your shot. Just not a few moments ago, trying to chase hardman Russian Vladimir Fimkin ahead of him. And his back wheel stepped out about 8 inches to the right as he just applied the brakes. Remember, on the continent, it's wired up the other way to the UK. So if you're riding in the UK and you're used to your front brake being on the right, the front brake is on the left on the continent. And please don't ever hire a bike abroad without just testing it out very gently first, because if you come piling down some great alpine climb and then grab the wrong brake, you are going to come a cropper. The two chase riders on the right hand side of your screen says Group 2 pursuers. They're trying to shut things down, are Engels and Van den Broek, but they're still a little bit unsure in the peloton here, spreading out across the road. We did see Kees de Pang doing some work, and then they've just got it to that stage where maybe they want somebody else to come over and do something. Yeah,
they're probably thinking, well, is it down to us? And probably the other teams will think, well, if you've got if you want to win this race, then it is down to you to chase. So you get on with it. And there's probably a little bit of looking at each other, but somebody will take up the chase again in a minute. We're now we're just on the lower slopes of the Côte de Bois, so.
Yeah, and this is the nasty bit of it. This is very, very steep indeed at this point, but it's quite long, and nearly 20% this bit. You can see how steeply it goes up. If you ever want to see how steep a gradient is, and you don't really get the effect from looking down on the back of a motorcycle, is when they go past a house. I've said this before, but it's well worth saying here. When you go past a house, you get a side-on shot of the riders. Just see the angle of the front doorstep, and that'll tell you how steep it is. This one, actually, you can see is fairly steep, and it's the nasty bit at the beginning of the climb. It's nearly 3.5 kilometers long, and it flattens out a weeny bit, but it looks like Vandenbroek has dragged Engels up to our front two, Sorensen and Efimkin. So they're now 4 again, and it's not that far back to the other group being led by Simon Spilak. Group 2 making contact then. Will Efimkin launch himself off up the road once again? 1-1 is 31 back to the peloton at the moment. The whole nature of this race has changed, I think, Graham, because I think some of the big teams were wanting to shut it down a little bit earlier. But when the rains come down, some of these guys have seen their opportunity. Yeah,
absolutely. As I say, the fact that the weather changed and has got cold and wet does make it sometimes more of an advantage to be in a small group in front rather than in the peloton. I mean, there are still obstacles to negotiate in the peloton, the white lines, and also just watching there was a bollard, all this sort of traffic calming that seems to be coming into more and more countries now just makes cycle racing that bit more difficult and that bit more dangerous. We've just seen the guy there on the yellow flag. I know we saw a horrendous crash the other week in Tour of Flanders where the guy had his head down. Obviously hadn't heard the marshal's whistle and flag waving, and I don't think I've seen many more horrendous crashes in my life, really.
That
really
was
did make
awful,
me cringe,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the amazing thing was he came out of it reasonably unscathed.
Did he?
He completely totaled his bike.
Yeah, very spectacular.
It was Angel Gomez from, just to confuse you, Angel Gomez from Sonia de Waal and the Tour of Flanders, who hit that traffic island full pelt with his head down. And the one who's just fallen off here in Flèche Wallonne is Angel Gomez Marcante, and they both ride for the same team. Marcante, you can always tell by he's got a sort of sandy-coloured curly hair that sticks out of the bottom of his helmet. Right on the front at the moment, it looks like Luis Leon Sanchez in the dark black with the just the little red bits and pieces on it from Kees de Pang. This is the back of the peloton at the foot of the climb, and really begin to suffer. There's a Top Sport Vlaanderen jersey, the sort of purpley blue and yellow, just gone through our shop. We haven't seen many of them. Top Sport Vlaanderen, one of a number of non-Pro Tour teams been invited to this. They've got a good team: Koen Barbie, Koen, Gilbert, Neyens, Pollers, Renders, Sven Renders we saw on the attack in the Tour of Flanders. Preben van Hek is a very good rider, and Frederik Volution. Cycle Koolstrop is one of the other ones, and one big name we've not seen anything of, Stefan Weseman from Cycles Koolstrop. Skill Shimano are in here. We've not seen them at the front either. Really has been a bit of a turnaround, Graham, and we saw a lot of these teams at the beginning of the classic season, but we've not seen many of them today.
No, well, it's to say, once you get into the really big classics and the big boys start firing, then you won't often see some of these small teams. You still see the odd rider, but generally you see it's the big teams. We're just looking now. I think all the other riders that were in that big breakaway have now been caught. I think we just got those 4 riders still in front, and peloton accelerating, lots of attacks going now down to 16 seconds.
There are in fact 7 teams here who are not Pro Tour teams. They are Barlow World, Tinkoff. We've not seen anything of Tinkoff. Maxime Montfort, this guy's a good climber, very good, had a fantastic Tour de France last year, and trying his hand at getting out of the peloton at the moment. Just to round up those other teams, by the way, there's Barlow World, Tinkoff, Slipstream, Chipotle, with David Miller riding today. We've not seen anything of him either. Landbauer Credit, Tony Steiner, Skill Shimano, Cycles Koolstrop and Top Sport Vlaanderen are the non-Pro Tour team riders. There's Matt Lloyd who is a bit of a climber, actually, Matt Lloyd. And he had a very interesting, shall we say, Amstel Gold,
yeah,
didn't he?
He was very prominent, yeah.
Yeah, he was very prominent, but he
shot a bend, I think.
Yes, yes. I think Sean and I said they don't have bends in Australia, and that's what it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Shows how fast they were going, though, at the end of Amstel Gold.
It does. It also probably shows he just had his head down for a second at the wrong time, and his bends, the corners and bends in the Amstel do come up very often. There's so many changes of direction in that race because it's in such a small area.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? One after another. Here we go with...
Certainly a good acceleration by Montfort.
Yeah, he's a terrific rider, Montfort. But he's really come on very, very strong indeed. I mean, last year he was terrifically prominent. Confidence to turn up some good riders now and again that you've not heard of that often. And I tell you, my favourite Cofidis rider, well, this year the best rider obviously has been Sylvain Chavanel. He's been in really good form. Well, we could see him today if he can get up there as well. Montfort can climb as well, so maybe he could do something. But I think my favourite rider has to be Stéphane Auger, because he's always in the long breaks. He's out there for about 150 kilometres.
Yeah, Chavanel's had a good season, hasn't he? He's really made a bit of a breakthrough this year. The sort of great French hope of the past. It never seemed to happen, but he's had some great results this year.
Yeah, well, let's be magnanimous, and also let's also be fairly honest about the fact that more than once you and I have sat there saying, oh, it's Chavanel's day today, and having a good old giggle because it hasn't been.
Yeah.
And he was actually becoming that sort of rider, wasn't he, where you say, oh, right, the French will talk about it, but it won't happen. It's really, really being strung out here with 30 kilometres to go, and this hill really playing havoc with some people. I'm surprised Matt Lloyd is suffering just a little bit off the back of this little group here. But Montfort has really launched the acceleration and got straight up to the front here.
Yeah, it's a really good move. Very positive, and you know, obviously got a lot of confidence in himself and feeling good. He's he notices no arm warmers on or anything, so he's a Belgian, so the cold's not going to bother him.
Yeah, he wanted to do something here because he's, of course, a Walloon Belgian. He's a French-speaking Belgian, as is Philippe Gilbert. He's not a one for the Tour of Flanders. He's not a one for the Paris-Roubaix, but he is for this sort of race. He'll want to do something even more spectacular at the end of the week because he actually comes from Bastogne. Remember, had a very good finish in one of the stages in Paris-Nice, a second on one of the stages in Paris-Nice, one of the more hilly ones. Look at the pace being injected again at the front of the peloton, trying to... This is really, really breaking up. We're going back from one group to another. And the rider who's come across to the front group from Milram is Andrei Grifko, a Ukrainian, and once again a rider who can tolerate these sort of conditions. There's a Ukrainian followed by a Russian followed by a Dutchman. If you wanted proof positive that Northern Europeans are good in these sort of conditions, here it is. Grifko is a very, very strong rider.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that the tough conditions are sort of really do suit the Northern Europeans, and it may prove wrong, but maybe we won't see too many of the Southern Hemisphere or the Spanish or the Southern European riders at the forefront today. May just affect them.
One of the riders from Lamprey now trying to work across to the group that's got up to the front and started to get away. It looks like
Rigi.
Daniel Rigi. God, look at that godforsaken bit of turf there. And field. My word.
Peloton's still not giving up, though. I think there's a Rabobank rider in this front group as well.
Yeah, there is.
So
I think
I'm not
it's
sure who
yeah.
it is.
I think it's possibly still Paul Martins who got back to that group.
And Peloton's not so big now either.
Well, it'll be interesting to see an overhead shot when the director pulls up. That's a lovely shot, though.
But that gap's gone up again there, so this group now does look quite a strong little group.
Yeah, pulled along by Maxime Montfort at the moment. Now, is he doing this for himself? Is he trying to set it up for somebody else? I wouldn't be surprised if he's trying to force other teams behind to do some more work.
Yeah, well, you could fancy his chances out of this group.
And this is back in the peloton. By the look at it, looks like Cunego hunched over his bars there. Just trying to pick out this David Miller, I think, in that shot. Just right at the very front of the shot in the white.
It is David Miller, yeah, it's definitely his style.
Who's coming up on the right? Frederick Willems, I think, was the Liquigas rider in the light green, just passing him like a rapid rate of knots. Rigi still fighting away. It looks a bit no man's landy to me, this one, for Daniele Rigi.
He's probably out there thinking, now, what did I do that for?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a daft move, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Why has my director sportif sent me up here? Do you get that, Graham, when your director sends you off to do some sort of daft task? And
Oh, I've been sent back to the bunch before. In fact, what are you doing?
Oh, excellent. Like, was it last year at the Tour de France? I think it was last year in the Tour de France when Francis de Jour, Marc Madiot, was so furious with his riders for not getting in the break day after day after day. He sent the entire team to the front to ride with absolutely no purpose whatsoever, flat out.
Yeah.
There you go, that's punishment for you. I don't know what Daniel Rigi's done wrong, but
Yeah.
there he is.
Especially when there was those other riders that went off in pursuit before, and he's obviously missed it, and his team manager said, "Come on, what's one of you near the front?"
Guido Bontempi, big Guido Bontempi, the director sportif. He's a very affable chap, except if you get on the wrong side of him, which I'm not sure that Rigi hasn't done for missing the break in the first place. So it's a strong group at the front here, kicked off by Grifko and Maxime Montfort, still leading by 30 seconds.
Oh.
With 27 kilometers to go now, they're still holding back the peloton, just a shade under 30 seconds, and this group really working hard now. It was kicked off by an attack from Maxime Montfort, and it looks like Matt Lloyd has worked his way up to this group. The Australian was in really good form 3 or 4 days ago at the Amstel Gold Race. Kees de Pang being led on by Luis Leon Sanchez here. They're trying to shut down this front group. It's suddenly split apart, and CSC for some reason seem to have lost out. They had 2 or 3 men in the front group, and they seem to have lost out now. Daniele Rigi, I think, is the Lamprey rider there, right in the middle of the shot in the pink and blue. He's been brought back in by the Kees de Pang rider at the front, Luis Leon Sanchez, an excellent rider, one of my really favourite riders. He's got super technique, very, very strong as well. So it's Luis Leon Sanchez for Kees de Pang with the red sides of that black jersey there. Then Christophe Brandt, very, very recognisable, blonde, sort of sharp-nosed Christophe Brandt there for Silence Lotto. And then coming through, one of the CSC riders is still in this group, and it's beginning to look very, very all over the place. Andre Grifko back with the front group by the look of it. Andre Grifko from Milram is having another dig. That's a big attack. Look at this, Graham. He's got about 40, 50 bike lengths already, and he must have put in a massive turn here.
Yeah, good move there, and he looked also confident as like on the descents as well. But this is where the motorbikes get in the way. It's often difficult for the motorbikes to go around the corners quicker than
front group now then, Graham, because I know Race Radio was coming over because it changed so quickly. Some riders came across, other ones went back. What is the...
Yeah, we've got we had 9 riders.
38 seconds now is the gap. Oh, Matt Lloyd right at the back here.
Okay, yeah, we had Efimkin, Nicky Sorensen, Tindam
as the Rabobank rider.
Rabobank, Engels of Quick Step, De Waala of Lambeau Credit, Lloyd, the Aussie, Jurgen van den Broek still there, and we had Grifko before he's just attacked this little group, and also number 197 Montfort, the Cofidis rider. So that was that little group, and the peloton now 38 seconds down.
No, 40 now. Well,
40,
look at this. This is a great move by Andre Grifko. He's got 24 kilometers to go. Still maybe a little bit far out. Who knows? You know, it's a long way to go, especially in these conditions. But he must be feeling very, very strong, and he also must realise that other people are not perhaps going to take up the chase. Some of the Southern Europeans, the Spaniards, maybe not that keen, although Kees de Pang are working at the front of the peloton, but it looks a little half-hearted at the moment. They're not all on the front. Maybe they've got another 5 or 6 kilometers to do that, but Grifko is stuck it in the big gear, and he's really going for this.
It does look very strong, very powerful. Just really opened the gap there. It's only 6 seconds. It probably looks a little bit bigger than it actually is, but this group still working together.
This is the chase group. Just seen Eddie Engels gone through your shot. Number 58 there is Nicky Sorensen from CSC. Jurgen van den Broek is the man just ahead of him in the darker of the 2 outfits, the red and black. He's still in there, still hanging in there. He hasn't given up hope of getting something out of this. Jurgen van den Broek, and he's a pretty good climber too. I don't think he's in the same class as, say, a Cunego or a Valverde or a Rebellin for this. And we've not seen Rebellin whatsoever. There's Fabian Wegmann in there. Wegmann, a very good rider as well, and he can climb. He's won the mountains classification in the Giro d'Italia before, wearing the German national champions jersey. So in that right-hand shot, he's 1, 2, 3, 4 back. You'll see him with the bands around the white jersey. For German national champion, but Wegmann is up towards the front. We've not seen Rebellin at all.
No, we've seen very little other than those sort of side shots a few kilometres ago of the peloton where we spotted Cunego. But no, it's really be interested to know exactly what the riders are looking like in the peloton. Grifko's gap now 10 seconds over the chasing group, the other 8 riders, so he's looking strong. But what's interesting, or more interesting, is the fact that the gap to the peloton's going back up again. So.
Yeah, that's more important. I'm not sure that they feel up for it, so to speak, in this weather at the moment. They will do at some point, because it's too big a race to let slip out of your hands, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. But this group, this chasing group, are still working reasonably well together. 1 or 2 gaps forming there, but. Again, 44 seconds, so it's climbing steadily. Yep,
it is. Grifko has got his head down and hands on the drops and really going for it now. André Grifko. Grifko, another one of these hard riders from the Ukraine. It does seem that all the really tough guys, not necessarily the big winners, but the tough guys of the last 10 years or so have come from either Ukraine or Kazakhstan or Russia. They're the hungry ones, aren't they?
They are, yeah. They have a certain mentality that they've come all this way. That, real hunger about them, that they're not going to fail.
I guess in your day, when you were starting off and you were riding professionally, that tag could have been pinned to the Australians as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was around the period when Phil Anderson, Alan Piper, that was the start of the real worldwide. I mean, there'd been the odd rider in the past, sort of coming from other continents, but generally it was so European based, and the early 80s was when you started getting the Australians and the first Americans coming through to the race, from other continents, riding the first tour, and since then it's just gone on, and now extended to Eastern Europe.
Yep, definitely. They come here hungry, and what have they got to go back for in many ways? They've come to try and make a career for themselves as a top-class sportsman. They've been trained in a very hard school as well. I mean, they still are. They got the sort of modern training techniques as well. They still are pretty hard. They send them out in all sorts of weathers to get used to riding in this sort of stuff. They have a different mentality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not mollycoddled would be the way of one way of putting it.
I think there was a thing we always thought. A lot of riders, I remember, the English riders saying, we want to go to race in Europe, but I think it was always a little bit too close to home. I thought, it's so easy to come home, whereas the Australians didn't.
André Grifko has 20 kilometres to glory here in the Flèche Wallonne 72nd running of this race. A group of 20 riders went away very, very early and stayed away for a long, long time. And in fact, the peloton hasn't been able to peg back the remnants of them yet. They've got nearly 50 seconds advantage now. It got down to 10 seconds between a chase group and the peloton, and it's gone steadily upwards. And the rain is the contributing factor for that. There's been a number of riders jumped across from the peloton. They've seen the opportunity. Maxime Montfort is one of them. Matthew Lloyd, the Australian National Road Race champion. Jurgen van der Waal from Landbouw Credit. Lawrence Ten Dam from Rabobank, second in line from the back here. You can see in the blue and orange of Rabobank. Matt Lloyd in the National Champions jersey of Australia, right at the back. He's hanging on, really. And I wonder if he's just taking a ride. I'm not sure that he's really suffering. He's managed to bridge the gap quite happily on the last hill. I think he's taking a ride because he's a good climber, and the Mur de Huy would suit him.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get to the Muir in this group, or if this group can stay away, then he's got a good chance. But looking at this, Grifko is just still pulling away steadily. 22 seconds and then 46 seconds to the peloton. It's We may well see him go all the way, although
Yeah.
it may be struggle for him to get. It's quite a big carcass to get him up that hill, you know, when
Yeah, he
the
is,
peloton are closing down.
He's very strong, but he's a good. I mean, he's a great time trialist. He's a former national time trial champion of the Ukraine, and he's only 25 years of age. But as you say, Graham, he's a bit of a hefty old bolt to shoot up that. I say that in relative terms, of course. He's a svelte-like when you stand next to him, like most of these riders. Even great big riders like Vincente Garcia Acosta, we saw earlier today in the break. I mean, he looks enormous on a bike. You stand next to him, he's tiny, except for his thighs, which are huge. They really, really are. This is the, looks like the front of the peloton, actually. So, 18 kilometers to go for Andrei Grivko. He's taking it reasonably steady. He's not yet really pushing it on the descents. And 27 seconds is his advantage. As long as it stays that way, he might well be okay. He's fairly good bike handling skills, has Andrei Grivko. 46 seconds back to the peloton, which I think is probably as interesting a statistic. So he's really going for it. Is he trying to do a stand of Volta here, do you think?
Yeah, he's going for it. He's going to try and go all the way. But he's taking time very steadily out of the chasing group of 8 riders, but the peloton still, it's just sort of peloton are staying at the same gap, so the peloton have not given up by the fact that they're closing down on that other group. So we may see it all come back together. I mean, there's still the Côte d'Arène to come yet, so with 11 kilometers to go, so
yep.
There's a long way for Grivko to go.
I'll tell you what, if this guy gets to the Mur again by himself, he's going to be tired, isn't he? And as you say, he's fairly bulky to lift himself up there. And if guys are coming up fast from behind, then even if he's got 20-25 seconds, you know, that can easily melt away even on one hill.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. The next hill would be a good pointer just to see how well he goes up the next hill, because when he's on his own like this, he's almost in time trial mode, and he's in big gears, and then he's got to change the rhythm for the climb. You know, it might just sometimes can mess you up a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how he does go on the next climb, and whether that gap comes down. Well,
the next climb is the Côte d'Arène. It's 2.5 kilometers long. It's 6% in gradient on average, but it comes at 188.5 kilometers. So it'll be interesting to see how much he's still got in the legs. The blue and orange there, just going through a shot. Laurens ten Dam, I had a cup of coffee with him actually at the top of a climb, the Puigmior in Mallorca before the season started. I think he'd gone out there a couple of days before the rest of the Rabobanks had arrived for the GP Mallorca, or the Mallorca Festival, should we say, weekly festival. That's a good old race. But he was enjoying himself. Was he in the 12? Looks like it.
Looks like it, certainly. It's not the top gear, it's the next one to it. So hauling a hefty gear there.
Yep, I would suggest 53.12 is what he is in at the moment. Still not. He's got on the hoods, not completely on the drops. Blimey, they're a bit strung out now, aren't they? And they're beginning to close it down.
Yeah, Lampre, Kestelbaan.
Well, Lampre on the front of the pink and blue because they really want to shut this down. The 2 riders, of course, who want to gain something from this, their team shutting this gap down. Lampre's Damiano Cunego, winner on Sunday, and in the Amstel Gold Race, just gone. And Alejandro Valverde, who amazingly, incredibly, didn't see him at all through the entire race of Amstel Gold, and just got himself in the break of the day at the right time. That, and I said to Sean at the time, that really is the show of a class rider.
Yeah, I'm just hearing on the radio that the peloton has split also into several groups now, while it's pursuing these leaders. The gap for Grivko to the chase is 30 seconds, but I think what's left of the peloton now is closing down on those chasing riders. Yeah, and we saw one rider, Francis de Joux rider, going backwards and backwards, and I'm not quite sure what it is, and that looks like the peloton coming up behind the remnants of the escape group being towed along, as it was by Jurgen van den Broek again. Well, he's really, really going for it. On board is Colnago C15, Maxime Montfort, Laurens ten Dam, and so that is Van den Broek in that order. Ten Dam coming through to take a turn on the front, and then if Van den Broek, it's a good job we know he's in the front group now, because I tell you what, they're getting a little bit full of Belgian toothpaste. Yeah, but peloton now has caught that chasing group, so just the one rider in the lead. It's going to be difficult for him now, I think.
Yep, 15 kilometres to go. Well, he's nailed his colours to the mast, has Andrei Grifkov, the young man from Kiev. Well, we've said he's a hefty old bok, but I'll tell you what, his official stats, he only weighs 62 kilograms.
Maybe it looks deceptive on the bike then.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that could be right, actually, yeah, because he looks a bit bigger than 62 kilograms to me, unless he's about 3'6", which is not the case.
It's about what I used to weigh, and I'm sure he looks a damn sight bigger than I was.
Well, he is. He's quite chunky, isn't he? I mean, and you were, you see pictures of you on the bike, you were always very lean. Long and lanky.
Peloton,
was our Jonesy.
Yeah, Peloton still pursuing.
Well, we've got 28 on screen, and race radio saying 20 seconds, so take your pick, really. Let's go for around 25, shall we? And actually, Grifko, to me, looks as if he's tiring.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been riding along the flat there in the big gear, but now we can see his body's rolling as we're going up this drag, so I think his days may be numbered.
14 kilometres to go until the finish. We're still not quite on the Côte d'Ain.
I think that gap is about 20 seconds. They've just gone around that corner that we saw Grifko, so the gap's coming down fairly quickly.
Oh, well, they are actually on the lower slopes of the Côte d'Ain now. Of course, the 11 is from the top of it, isn't it? Daft David. This will test the real legs. Now, this is where we'll see people jostling to get to the front. Watch out for the teams who are going to make it to the front and try and control this and track Andrei Grifko down. He's got 13 kilometres. He's not going to stay out there. There's no doubt about that at all. It's going to be a whole new race again within the last 10 kilometres in the wet. We've got Lampre coming up to the front in the pink and blue. Remember, watch out for them. Damiano Cunego, their team leader, has already won a classic this week, and he'll want to do it again. He's trying to emulate his countryman David Rebellin and a number of other riders in the past, of course, who have taken 3 wins in a week. This one being the one in the middle, Amstel Gold being the first last weekend, Flèche Wallonne being in the middle, and Liège-Bastogne-Liège at the end of the week. And he could well do it.
Yeah, we certainly got the legs. He's in with a shout in this one. It's obviously a very difficult thing to do, to get 3 races like that and get everything perfect. But he's in with a shout. He's looks like he's in this.
It's a shame. Look, that's Maxime Montfort. He's having to get the car to come up to him. Montfort, who'd launched such a great day. He's got a puncture by the look of it. Yeah, I would say. There's Top Sport Vlaanderen in the yellow and blue. Way, bit of attack coming off the front. Is that still Grifko?
That's Grifko,
yeah,
just being caught, or getting close to being caught.
Yeah. Difficult to tell, isn't it? He almost looks like a Crédit Agricole rider there, because the blue has gone slightly green with the spots of water on the camera. Not so much spots of water, lake of water on the lens. And it's a long old drag, this, the Côte d'Ain. It's 2.5 kilometres and 6% average gradient. But when you've been going this hard all day and in this sort of weather, only certain riders can deal with this sort of stuff. It was interesting to see David Miller up towards the front of the peloton as they got back together. Well, I don't think it's a Miller sort of race today, but you never know. He may try and launch something at the end. He'd love to win something. He's come second in Tour of California this year, had a dreadful Paris-Nice, started well, but then that was the end of it. Well, CSC on the right-hand side of the road, left-hand side of your screen now. Now pulling away. That, to me, looks like Gustav Erik Larsen, if I'm not mistaken, but I may be wrong. It's very difficult to tell in such tremendously bad conditions.
It is Larsen.
Yeah, it looks like Gustav Erik Larsen. Yeah, he's a very good rider, Gustav Erik Larsen. He was poached last year by Unibet from Francis de Jeux, and Marc Madier was furious. The poor guy never got a chance to do much riding in Unibet, and I'm still seething about that situation. Just while we're seeing Erik Larsen having a go for it, what did you think about the whole Unibet fiasco last year?
Oh, I thought it was unbelievable. I felt quite sorry for them, actually. They got really just caught up in the whole UCI ASO battle, and you know, you feel sorry for a sponsor who puts all that money in and commits to it, only to be refused to ride races. And you know, we think it's a wonder they didn't walk away straight away. I think I probably would have done.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that battle's still going on, and one wonders whether it ever will be resolved.
Yeah, this of course is an ASO owned and run race, which is why we haven't got to Astana here, but we did of course see that in the Amstel Gold race. Sergei Ivanov was very active at the front because that wasn't an ASO race, and in Liège-Bastogne-Liège we won't see Astana again. In fact, the next time we'll see Astana is in the Tour of Romandy, which that's incredible really when you think about it.
Yeah, it is, and you can I can see both sides to the argument, really, you know, but I can understand the race organiser as well being able to say, you know, it's my race, I want to be able to put in who I want to put in, you know, at least be able to have a choice of some teams and to make our stance against things. I mean, Astana is a completely new management, so you would think that they may have sort of looked the other way for that, and you know, the Johan Brunel sort of managed team, and say that it's not the Astana of old, it's a new thing, but they still see the connection, and I think they've said, well, let's look at it next year.
Yeah, it's almost sort of not Chinese whispers, it's all it's little connections, isn't it, right, left and centre.
I also think the ASO thing is a little bit the Johan Brunel, the Discovery, there's always a bit of history there with them at Armstrong, so I think it's a little bit, just a bit of stubbornness in my view.
There is quite a bit of stubbornness going on, but you know, people can just shrug their shoulders, can't they? In these sort of situations, they're in the driving seat when it comes to things. Gustav Erik Larsen then from CSC, still ploughing on by himself. He's in good form actually, but he's not going to make this one stick because who's this coming up behind him? That's difficult to tell really. In all white.
Shaky camera.
Yeah, exactly. Shaky camera, plus half a gallon of water on the lens. That doesn't really help. It's not Matt Lloyd again, is it? I don't think it is. No. Just wondering, because this won't be a Pro Tour event, so they won't be wearing the Pro Tour jersey. Oh, it's Fabian Wegmann.
Yeah.
Fabian Wegmann. Well, he is another national champion, Fabian Wegmann. This man here, did you see him in the Tour of Lombardy last year when he was, not last year, year before last, when he was chasing after Paolo Bettini, trying to get across? It's been many, many years since I've actually seen a man burst into tears on a bike, which he physically
was painful, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know. And this is a man who wears his riding on his face, so to speak. I mean, he's a tremendously gutsy rider. But all emotions that run through a bike rider's head come into his face. Completely the opposite to, say, somebody like Miguel Indurain, who never showed any emotion whatsoever. And Adi Ankels, I would think, is the rider coming across here, the Dutchman from Quick-Step. So Wegmann in the national champions jersey of Germany here on your screen from Gerolsteiner, because David Rabelin's teammate. Look at him, look at his face. Two men with 11 kilometres to go. Gustav Erik Larsen has been joined by young Fabian Wegmann, or not so young Fabian Wegmann now, the German national road race champion. There's Visconti, the Italian national road race champion, #1 for it in the Italian champions jersey. Used to have one of those somewhere. Never was an Italian champion, but there we go. And coming across the gap is Alexander Efimkin. Well, I'm sorry, I thought it might be Eddie Engels. This is Vladimir's brother, Alexander. And they are tough guys, these. Larsen looks over his shoulder. He's got Efimkin coming up, and Efimkin's going to get on, and I think possibly go straight past. They're not very far behind, though, the peloton. And they're about, what, 6, 7, 8 seconds now?
Yeah, maximum, I think. 10 kilometres to go as well, so it's all on now. Get obviously a fast run down to the bottom of the Mur de Huy in a minute, so it'll be interesting to see who carries on chasing.
Yeah, carry on chasing. What they'll have to do, 8 seconds then is the gap. Right, let's just run down what happened today so far. There was a group of 20 went away and then established themselves as a break by about 100 kilometres in. 199.5 is the length of this race today. Vlotten and Moletta from Gerolsteiner, Acosta from Case d'Epargne, Fernandez from Sonia Deval, the other Efimkin, Vladimir Efimkin from AG2 Le Mondial, Andy Schleck from CSC, along with Nicky Sorensen and Alexander Kolobnev, Chop from Bouygues Telecom, Murray and Gilbert, big loser today because he just hasn't got the legs in the front group as well. Poriol from Crédit Agricole, Angels from Quick-Step, Belica from Silence Lotto, as well as Jürgen van den Broek, and Duin from Slipstream, Pinotti from High Road, and Lampre are now on the front of the peloton trying to drive it along. That looks like Christian Pfaffenberger there for Barlow World, in the middle just taking a drink because Pfaffenberger has been in good form. He was in the Amstel Gold right at the finish, but they're up for it. Lampre, 3 men out the front, 12 seconds is the gap. Lampre are going to try and shut them down because Cunego wants to take a second win in 4 days.
It's certainly the right type of finish for him. There's not many faster riders on uphill finish than Cunego. I even remember seeing him in the Giro when he first burst onto the scene, winning the Giro. He was almost unbeatable on the uphill climb.
Well, it was amazing, wasn't it? He rode up in the wheel of his team leader Gilberto Simoni for so many days, and then almost decided, well, you know, I'm much stronger here and I'm going to go for it, I'm going to attack him. And Simoni just looking at him as if, what on earth do you think you're doing? But it does happen now. Remember the Vuelta back in 2002 when Aitor Gonzalez did exactly the same to Oscar Sevilla, and just Sevilla looking around going, what are you doing? And Gonzalez just eating him for breakfast, basically. What a shame that man turned out to be the man he was, really, because that particular ride, knowing now what we know, maybe it wasn't so good, but at the time it was one of the most exciting Vueltas I can remember. Really was. And a great shame that it came to that. He actually got arrested last year for some reason. I think assault or something daft on a taxi driver. He was a bizarre chap, I think.
Right. Didn't hear that one, but yeah, it's quite often when there's riders, sort of, it all goes wrong, they go off the rails, and you know, you hear all sorts of things.
Yep, Sean's always told me he was a man who liked to party. Here we go, 20 seconds is the gap back now. We're hearing from Race Radio. They've got 16 on the screen. This is a good move by these two. They've got 8 kilometers to go. Fabian Wegmann, winner of the Mountains Classification, the green jersey in the Giro d'Italia in 2004. He's been twice, I think, German national champion. He's wearing the colours today on his jersey. He's at the back there, number 7. In the middle, Gustav Erik Larsen, the tall, lanky, rather sardonic Swede. He's not particularly liked by, say, people with a sort of outgoing sense of humour. He's very dour, he's very abrupt, but it's just that sort of Swedish way he has about him. Nothing wrong with him, it just has that sort of abrupt manner. And right at the front of the group at the moment is the second of the Efimkins, Alexander Efimkin. And Efimkin spent a lot of his time riding in Italy up until he was plucked out of second division Italian teams. I think he rode for Barlow World as well, actually, for a while. He was plucked out by Patrick Lefevere's Quick Step squad. Both Efimkins have been in the action today. That not quite enjoying the down as much as Larsen and Fabian Wegmann here. Wegmann is a very good descender, and Larsen is a big guy and likes to motor. So CSC have been in the action all day, Graham, and they've got another man up here in a very good position.
Yeah, they've ridden the perfect race, really. I mean, you can't ask any more as a director sportif when you give out your team instructions in the morning that there's got to be at least one in every single move, and they've ridden perfectly today.
Yeah, every single move. Larsen is in the middle then in the black shorts. And 6 kilometers to go. What is the gap? We had 20 seconds. Oh, that looks like Wegmann. Wegmann looks like he's gone down. Is it Wegmann? No, it's Larsen. Larsen's hit the deck. Oh, my word. And we were just saying he was going downhill fairly quickly. He's hit something on the ground there and gone down, just lost control of the bike. They were giving it everything. Let's have a look. What happens?
I think he just hasn't seen the bend coming and has realised and just braked too hard and too late.
Oh.
Yeah, either that or he hit the edge of the road there.
Oh. Yeah, well, it's nasty road surface on the far right-hand side. Well, he's let's see if he gets up at all. He's at the side of the road. You can see him in the top of his shot, just wandering around. Game over for Gustav Erik Larsen. Well, what will they do now? 19 seconds is the gap, and you're just saying CSC have ridden the absolutely perfect race. I mean, you can't do anything about that.
Didn't I?
Yeah,
I put in it, but that's an incident of the race.
Welcome to the world of commentators.
It's, but yeah, I think that's one of those things. I just get a feeling he didn't he wasn't quite maybe a little bit tired. He wasn't quite aware, and I think he saw that bend coming up last minute, and I think he just hit the brakes too hard, and then the brakes sometimes grab.
Yeah,
and it just throws you.
This is Alexander Efimkin, head down, going for it. 19 seconds is the gap. Now he's probably in the 12 or 11 by the look of it. Really motoring along now. They've got this long, fast run, as you said, into the Mur de Huy. 19 seconds. Is it enough for this guy?
He's got a chance, but I think he needs that at the bottom of the climb. I think he needs minimum of that at the bottom of the climb to hang on. But he's got a chance if he can hold that.
Well, he's not hanging about. Where's Wegman, by the way? We're not sure whether Wegman's ahead or behind. Is that Wegman ahead?
Wegman is ahead.
My
yes.
word, that's fabulous riding by Fabian Wegman. Well, I couldn't wish it on a nicer guy. He's a lovely guy. He deserves a big win if he gets it. I mean, he's got so it's 19 seconds back from Wegman, in fact, to the peloton. And let's have a look at it. Is it going to be once again a bridesmaid job for Fabian Wegman with 4 kilometers to go? Well, I guess this is the double whammy again, isn't it, Graham? They're sending this man up the road knowing he has a realistic chance of doing something, but at the same time, they've got David Rebellin behind.
That's exactly, yeah, that's perfect. And we just heard the gap now 30 seconds from Wegman to the peloton, and this gives him a really good chance of staying away.
Oh, and I tell you what, Alexander Efimkin's going to have to chase very, very, very hard. I don't know if it's David Miller right at the front of the chasing peloton. There is Miller in the, well, that was Miller, should we say, in the British National Champions jersey. Number 182 is Andre Grifko again, but Fabian Wegman is on his way at the moment. Wegman trying so hard to stay away. Now watch his face. He'll wear every single emotion on his face. He is a terrific rider.
Yeah, he's got 10 seconds over Efimkin now, and 30 seconds on the peloton. This is going to be really interesting.
Wegman got his mountains classification jersey in the Giro d'Italia back in 2004, just by being gritty and determined and sticking in there and accumulating the points. But since then he's featured in a number of big races. San Sebastian, he's done fairly well in San Sebastian. He's been in the Giro a couple of times, tried very hard. It's about time. He's due a win. He tried so hard at the Tour of Lombardy 2 years ago. And only to lose out to a flying Paolo Bettini. He was wearing the rainbow stripes of world champion, and nothing was going to stop him on that day, because he was in memory of his brother who had died very, very shortly earlier, and he took that win for him. Well, the interesting thing about this man, we were talking about brothers earlier, with Alexander Efimkin on the right-hand side, 10 seconds back, or was 10 seconds back on Fabian Wegman. His brother is racing today. I'm not sure whether he's actually in the car, but in fact, Fabian Wegman's brother, Christian Wegman, is a director sportif at Gerolsteiner, so he might well be out there, or it might be Christian Hen. I'm not quite sure who's in the car.
Listed as Christian Hen, so yeah, that's another family connection.
Right, bunch of brothers. He's won the GP Miguel Indurain this year, certainly, and he's had a very good early season. He was doing very well in certainly in Japan earlier in the year. He's won that Miguel Indurain GP a couple of times. He's got lots and lots of firsts, lots of seconds and thirds in stages as Fabian Wegman over the last few years. Got a first on the stage in the Dauphiné Libéré, you remember, a couple of years ago as well. But he's really, really burying himself now. This would be a very, very popular result, I think. Coming
up to the last kilometre, and the gap's down to 22 seconds, so it's going to be pretty tight, I think.
Well, what's the gap between these two? That's what I want to see. They're not that far apart from each other. Look at this! Lampre really, really motoring on the front, because Cunego has seen his opportunity. It's going to be very difficult for Wegman, but he's still got a chance. 22 seconds. Don't look over your shoulder, Fabian. Just bury yourself now. He's a good climber, but it looks as if he's beginning to tire. Oh my word, what's going on here?
They've slowed up, they're looking at each other. I think the Lampres have taken the peloton as far as they can, and so you guys get on with it. Leave it to the guys going for the win.
But look at this, Alexander Efimkin is coming up onto the wheel of Fabian Wegman. Oh, that's a great ride by Efimkin. He's a very, very good climber, as is his brother. But Wegman still going to dig in there. I think if it came down to a sprint, you'd be hard pushed to find a difference between these two. They are, I think Efimkin's probably the stronger rider, but they can both turn in a decent sprint on a similar level. Still out in the lead then, Fabian Wegman. It's been a great ride by him. Very, very good ride indeed. And I wonder how far back the peloton is now. It was 22 seconds. And they're closing him on Ifibkin. Oh, here they come. Has he got enough in the legs? Come on, Fabian. Dig in there, and they're right at his tail. Oh, my word.
Evans coming up.
Evans, Cadel Evans from Silence Lotto. Well, it's absolutely his sort of terrain. There he is in the front. Rebellin is just behind him in the light blue of Gerolsteiner. Wegmann in the German national champions jersey, a former mountains winner, as I've said, in the Giro d'Italia. Second, not second, but he was bombing after Paolo Bettini in the Tour of Lombardy a couple of years ago. Oh, it's over for him. I don't believe it. Once again, he's going to be a bridesmaid. Evans on the left-hand side in the black and red. You could just see him for Silence Lotto. He's on the wheel now of Fabian Wegmann. Wegmann's still trying. He's looking over the wrong shoulder, and Evans is going to come past him. Oh, look at him. He dies in the saddle. Here comes
Rebellin, Cunego.
There's Rebellin in second spot. Cunego's in third. Just shows how steep it is. Rodriguez in fourth spot there in the red and yellow of the Spanish national champion. So it's Evans in the front in the black and red. And then just behind him, the light blue of David Rebellin. Cunego seems to be going backwards at this point. I don't think he's got it in the legs today. No Alejandro Valverde in this. Is Evans going to take his first classic win? Let's get that head-on shot. Here he is. He's powering up. Rebellin, I'm not sure. Is he waiting? Is he waiting? Is he waiting? Is he waiting? Kim Kirchen, I think, is behind for High Road. That's an interesting shot. I don't know whether it is Kirchen. I would guess it is. Kirchen was in good form at the beginning of the week. Yes, he's got the Luxembourgish stripes on. It's down to these three now. Rodriguez is falling back a little bit. This is a dreadful climb. Cunego's going backwards. It's not going to be his day today. This is going to be a straight fight, I think. Now, between Kirchen in the white of... There he is! Kim Kirchen comes to the front. He's taken the... He's going to take this win. He's taken the lead away from Cadel Evans, and he's pulling away. Surely nobody could take him back. Evans is a real fighter. Has Kirchen gone too soon? He's gritting his teeth, the Luxembourg rider. Evans is coming back!
Amazing ride by Evans.
Oh, this is extraordinary! Which one of these is going to take it? Kim Kirchen is going to hang on by the skin of his teeth. The Luxembourgish rider and the Luxembourg flags around. Cadel Evans second. It looks like Cunego comes in for third, and that is an extraordinary win for Kim Kirchen.
Yeah, great win. I mean, but the amount of work Evans did all the way up that climb, I thought he was actually just going to ride them off one by one.
I did.
One time I did. I thought he'd got a bit of a gap, but tremendous. It was a great jump. He timed that perfectly.
Well, I thought Evans was just going to ride everybody off his wheel, but Kim Kirchen, he was very strong. He attacked early in the decisive break of Amstel Gold, and Kirchen taking his first big classics win. Kim Kirchen, former Luxembourg national road champion. He's a good time trialist as well. He's another one who's been waiting in the wings for a win. You have to feel sorry, though. Really, you have to feel sorry for Fabian Wegmann.
Yeah, well, he tried. Was said you need really a minimum of 20 seconds. It's a hell of a long way up that climb to stay away without the decent lead when you've been on your own for a few kilometres. But he gave it a good go. I mean, it could have worked. Obviously, the Lampreys chased very hard and brought the rest of the peloton up to within striking distance at the kilometre to go flag, and left it up to the climbers. But that was a great finish.
He's been knocking on the door of a big win for a long time, hasn't he, Kim Kirchen? Remember, he was second overall in Tirreno Adriatico last year, second overall in the Tour de Suisse last year, and as we're riding himself into form in the Tour of the Basque Country. I mean, he took a couple of stage wins in the Tour of the Basque Country earlier this year, and he's just one of these guys who has got it in the legs. He's a big guy as well, isn't he? To get up there the way he did is well, I think they've added a bit more water. They'd have been better on the bikes today, I would have thought. It's been wet enough for them. But Kim Kirchen is one of those riders. He's exceptionally strong, and to ride up there, he's got to be in super form to beat Evans.
He has, yeah. But it's just, I just think what the amazing thing is the fact that Luxembourg, you know, they get these countries that have a real fantastic period of time where they get so many good riders come through at the same time.
So a win for Kim Kirchen from Luxembourg, taking the victory ahead of Cadel Evans, Damiano Cunego, and then a flying Robert Gesink. Well, victory in the pouring rain on the Mur de Huy for the Luxembourg rider and former national road race champion Kim Kerken, ahead of a disconsolate Cadel Evans. I think he thought he had it in the bag, did Evans, and Kim Kerken came up from behind him. Damiano Cunego looked spent, but eventually he came up to take third spot. Fourth spot went to another man we talked about possibly doing something today. Robert Gessink left it just a little bit too late, but Kerken, who attacked very early in Amstel Gold and showing his form coming on. What can he do for Liège-Bastogne-Liège? This is by far the hardest finish, and look at the way he came around Cadel Evans. And David Rebellin, it's not to be a third win for him. Evans, not a first for him in this event either. Well, from myself, David Harmon, from Graham Jones, I hope you've enjoyed it here today for Flèche Wallonne. Hopefully we'll get to work together before another year is out. We'll see you at the weekend for Liège-Bastogne-Liège. From both of us now, goodbye.